Oh, good. You. All right, let's look at a couple other places. I presume Madame Tuspel's would be available for us to examine. I assume Herlock's there. And we need to speak with him. Oh my! No wonder it's called the House of Horrors. I'd like to turn on my heels and go straight home via the confectionery. Being scared makes you crave sweets? I can understand that. I was looking forward to a reunion after 6 months away, but there's no sign of Mr. Sholmes anywhere. That's strange. He should be here investigating the abduction of the waxwork. Oh well, I suppose we'll just have to come back again later. Alright, let me just be absolutely certain that there's nothing to examine here. Aside from the gallery, of course. Okay, I'll check the forensics laboratory. Nope, still nothing. Okay. Well, that's definitely something to take in. What's he doing? He's... oh my! The whole wall of the cell is covered in mathematical equations. And he's still writing more now. Professor, sorry to interrupt. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. And who is this young lady? My name is Hisato Mikotoa. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. It's a pleasure to meet you, Professor. Oh, if only I met a refined young woman like you sooner! None of this would have happened. No, that's not logical. That makes no sense at all. Oh dear, I'm sorry if my presence here upsets you. I owe you an apology too, Professor. I didn't manage to deliver what I promised you I would in the court this morning. Oh no! No. The whole thing, the whole miserable affair, it all happened because I've been such a complete and utter clot! Professor Harebrayne? What have you been working on yourself? Oh, you mean that? Oh dear, how embarrassing. I was suddenly struck by an idea, you see, and I simply had to write it down. The wall was all I had to hand. Oh, is it some new hypothesis? Something to surpass the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, maybe? No, actually. This is my autobiography. No. Stop. Your autobiography? How was I diddled and fiddled by Albert Harebrayne? I found I can represent my odd fortunes with only my odd numbers in an ambitious set of simultaneous equations. Really? I'm going to have to pay back all the loans I took for the kinesis machine, you see? So it's going to be a new serial publication from next month. Part 1, an odd birth, an odd upbringing. You can't beat the man's optimism, that's for sure. Look at that little tiny book. I see. Well, for now, would you mind if we talked a little more about the case? Oh, yes, of course. I've been working through the numbers. I was diddled, I was fiddled by the pair of them. By Asmund and that aloof engineer Drebber. We're not going to have to sit through an explanation of all these equations, are we? Alright, well, let us talk about how you were diddled and fiddled, my friend, this morning's trial. Everything I believed in has been turned on its head. My research, Mr. Asmund, the kinesis machine, my hypothesis even. I'm sorry it's come to this. There was really no other way. No, it's not your fault. I wanted to protect my work, but in the end, there was nothing worth protecting. It was never my intention to deceive anyone. I didn't want to trick the public. No, of course you didn't. But in court this morning, I realized something. Oh? If you've done something wrong without knowing it, you've still done something wrong! Logically, it makes sense no difference if you were aware of it or not. Ignorance is a poor excuse. The blame still lies with me. Oh, Professor. He believed in me this morning, you know. Barrick did. He believed in my hypothesis. Well, I think that was just a necessary factor in the prosecution establishing its case. No. Barrick wouldn't do something like that. I'm sure he genuinely believed it. Did he? I think I understand now. Why it was he decided to take on the prosecution in my trial, I mean. Go on. After the terrible accident happened, nobody would believe in my hypothesis anymore. Not the police, not the prosecution service, not any lawyers even. I feel like I dealt some kind of finishing blow there. So if any other prosecutor had taken the case, if it was any other than Barrick, I'm sure the prosecution would have declared my hypothesis a complete and utter nonsense. And in that case, you would have been declared a fraud yourself, Professor. Exactly, which would have been a fate worse than death for me. But Barrick insisted that I was a proper man of science from start to finish. You think that's why he... I know him very well indeed. He's an extremely kind-hearted soul. But that extremely kind-hearted soul spent all morning trying to paint you as a murderer, didn't he? Well, admittedly, that part of the analysis appears to have some flaws in it. And what about the whole Reaper side of things? How does that fit in with the kind-hearted soul idea? Do you think he set out to trick me from the very start? I'm sorry to say, that does seem likely, yes. When I first met him, he introduced himself as a wealthy financier. He looked over the paper I'd written, and said my work would benefit all humanity and must be pursued. He was so enthused, he was so empathetic. But in reality, he was the mastermind of some vast criminal network, it seems. I still can't believe it. As the machine was essentially a set decoration for some stage magic. It probably didn't require a large amount of investment, actually. But the scale of it, it wasn't just some small trick. It was a very elaborate feat of deception. All young scientists are full of hope about their burgeoning ideas, full of zeal. But none of us have any money. We want to do research, but we can't afford it. Many of us have taken on barely legal part-time work to try to earn just a few measly pennies to carry on. To go through all of that, only to be taken for a complete fool. It's too rotten to believe. It is, I agree. And that's why we have to find those responsible and bring them to justice. Mr. Asmund is no more, of course, which leaves only the engineer. Mr. Enoch Drebber. Or Drebber. Why am I adding letters? Drebber, the engineer. Let's discuss Drebber, please. Is he an engineer or magician or a swindler? It was about a year ago when Mr. Asmund first brought Drebber to me at Light Laboratory. I'm sorry I keep messing that up. Since then, I've met him many times to discuss details about the kinesis machine. But at no point did you have any inkling that he was just an illusionist? Oh, he definitely wasn't just an illusionist. What do you mean? He was a wealth of deep scientific knowledge. Is that a typo? I feel like it should be he has a wealth of deep scientific knowledge. Whatever, Old English is dumb. There's no question that the man's a genuine scientist. It's instantly apparent in conversation. I see. But the wretched man deceived you, Professor. It's unforgivable. We must do everything we can to find him and bring him to justice. And there's no more clues you can give us as his whereabouts? I'm sorry. We only ever discussed the kinesis machine. Nothing else. Although, just once, I did visit his workshop. Are you kidding me? What workshop? Drebber's enormous fabrication laboratory, where he constructed my great machine. You didn't consider the fact that it's called a fabrication laboratory kind of a hint that he was a master of fabrication? Why? Why did you enter this before? Enoch Drebber's workshop. There's every chance we might find the man there. So you've been to Drebber's place of work then? Yes, just once, you understand. It was an enormous place. Plenty of room to construct the kinesis machine, you see. Where can we find it? We have to go there at once. There's a good chance we'll find Drebber there. Well, yes, definitely. I'm sure. As in, I'm sure you're not going to want to hear this. But I have absolutely no idea where the workshop is at all. What? I'm so sorry! I was more than half expecting that. You see, I was blindfolded in the carriage the entire way there. Are you... How stupid are you? He blindfolded you? He wasn't taking any chances then. The place is incredible, the pinnacle of modern engineering. Even the oil he used was the very best. A special French machine oil that's impossible to obtain in Britain. Ah, the indescribable scent of that imported oil. Perfumers across the world should forget their secret formula and use that instead. What do you think, Mrs. Otto? You the machine work for your next birthday? I never use any kind of perfume, Mr. Natholo, and I'm not sure I'd like to start with that. I don't suppose you know even part of the workshop's address, Professor? You don't have a business card for Mr. Drebber, for example. The man was clearly very cautious, Mr. Zato. I'm sure he would— Aha! Yes, I do! He gave me his business card once! It's right here, look! What? Let me see that. Throw etiquette to the wind, why don't you? Enoch Drebber, engineer. I'm afraid that's all it says. There's no address. No. Oh well, I can't say I'm surprised. Still, this could be useful. Drebber's card. Mr. Enoch Drebber's business card. Though it only shows the man's name, there is no address. Okay. Let me just take a look here. Something in the back here. This dark smudge here. I think perhaps it's machine oil. Yes, possibly. Professor Harebrayne mentioned something about the oil Mr. Drebber uses, didn't he? He said it was specifically imported, very high quality oil. It's impossible to obtain in Britain. Yes, that's right. But more importantly, that's more fragrant than the finest perfume. So, excuse me a moment. Oh, it doesn't appear to have any scent at all. Don't worry. I expect that's just because it's such a tiny amount on here. Okay, so there's a smear machine oil on the reverse. Ah, look here, Mrs. Atto. Oh, yes, the wood's cracked and broken a little. I suppose it because it fell such a height? Yes, from the height at which the balloon was flying down to the crystal tower below. A fall of about 30 feet, or 9 meters. Leaving the man inside tragically dead. Okay, so we've updated the info on that. Okay, so I checked it, and what you actually need to do to progress onward, I would never have thought to do it. You need to present Drebber's card, after updating, of course, to Gina. How about this, Gina? Yeah, I'm still learning me letters at the moment. I only know A to E, so if it ain't too much bleeding trouble. Actually, Gina, it's the back of the card that's important. Eh? How come? It's just a dirty old smudge on the back, that's all. It turns out that this is very high quality French machine oil. It has a very particular scent, apparently. We're gonna use the dog. Yes, the power of the dog. You don't say. Let's have a whiff then. You sure? I don't smell nothing. No, we didn't mean that you should smell it. Oh, right. You mean Toby. Yes, the power of the dog will save the day. His sense of smell is so good, he can track people over the oceans, can't he? Professor Harebrayne informs us that this oil is unique to Mr. Drebber's workshop. I think he's picked up a scent. So you mean if he follows the scent of this oil, Toby could lead us to that dodgy cove's workshop? That's right. That's exactly what we were hoping. Alright then, we'll give it a go. I'll just borrow that. What? Wait, when did you... What's a pickpocket? If I can lead everyone to that Drebber workshop, I'll be the boss's boss before next week. Oh, yes, Gina. I'm sure I'll be promoted. Poor Gregson. God bless Gregson. I really hope this works. Alright then, Otto, leave it to me. Sorry? We're gonna get going at that dodgy genetic cove right this minute. Oh, but hang on. Someone's supposed to be on guard duty all the time. I'm afraid we can't help. We need to get on with our investigation as well, Gina. Oh, right. Oh well, never mind. What? Ain't gonna be me what gets it in the neck. He'll be the boss. Poor Gregson. Again. Ready, Toby? You got the whole set, have you? Come on then, boy. See you later. I do hope the scent of that oil leads him to that swindler's workshop. Yes, I hope so too. Ideally, before the dot swims across the channel to France. Alright, well, now that we've gotten that little doodah taken care of, let's try tough spells again. No? Still nothing. Okay, so after much trial and error, I realized what I actually need to do to move forward. There was one specific thing that I neglected to check in here, and I've been kicking myself about it for the past couple minutes. Let's check the book in the forensics laboratory, which is literally the one and only thing I failed to check. Look at this big, thick book here. It appears to be an accounting ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team's spending, I think. Oh? What is it? It's clear that the team purchases various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but... Well, one entry seems rather strange. Really? In what way? They're buying 500 scalpels every month. 500? They must be working really hard on dissecting corpses. I don't know. Judicial autopsies are only carried out in certain special circumstances. And scalpel blades can be sharpened too. It does seem a bit strange. You're right. 500 scalpels a month? What could they possibly be using all them for? What are you doing? Ah! Sorry, we had something we wanted to ask you, but you weren't here, so... So you thought you'd snoop around? That's acceptable to you people from the East, is it? Well, what do you want? Lord Strongheart told us, you see, that it was you who examined the victim's body. Mr. Aspen's body, I mean. So we came to ask you about your findings. on Lord Strongheart's advice. Very well. If the Lord Chief Justice has given his consent, I'll tell you what our investigation team's revealed. But when we're done, you must leave immediately. That's relatively fair. Then let's converse. What did you find? So, you want to know what the forensic investigation team determined from its examination of the scene? The victim, Mr. Odie Asman, who disappeared from the experimentation stage amid an explosion, and the Mr. Asman who appeared moments later, partway up the Crystal Tower, were without question one and the same person. That is the team's conclusion. But that can't be right. If it was an elaborate trick, we can only speculate about how it was carried out. Let's see. If two people who looked very similar to each other were involved, they could have made it appear as if one single person had switched places, couldn't they? Very true, but sadly in this instance, that was not the case. The man who disappeared and the man who subsequently reappeared was the same person. The fingerprints of the scene make that quite evident. Ah, fingerprints. They're not yet officially recognized as forensic evidence in the British justice system. But one day, they will be used as investigative aid, as a matter of course. Oh my, but that would mean that the instantaneous kinesis actually took place. So, where does that leave us? My team was tasked with investigating, not drawing conclusions. Instantaneous kinesis is impossible, and yet the body did move from one place to another. This hasn't cleared anything up at all. It's made the whole thing even more of a mystery. Whoa, that's a cool mask! Mama, what is this? Oh wait, you're not the same person. Ah! Where did she spring from? And did she just call the doctor Mama? This is a lawyer, dear. Oh. Hello. To meet you. Pleased to meet you. Yes, I'm a defense lawyer. Mama? Yes. Can I cut this one out? Stay away from me. What? I've never seen inside an Eastern prison before. I want to know what it looks like. Of course you can't. It's a live specimen, as you can very well see. Boring. I think I just had a near-death experience. Oh dear, Mr. Naruhodo, you're as pale as a corpse. Then let's leave before I'm mistaken for one. Well, I think we've done all the investigating we can here for now. If we could just determine the whereabouts of Mr. Drebber. I'm sure Gina and little Toby won't let us down. Now then, do you think we ought to try to speak with Mr. Sholmes at this point? We have things to discuss. I'm dying to meet him again after all these months. Yes, it's quite possible he might know something useful. You're right. We ought to find him at Madame Tuspel's. He's supposed to be working there as a temporary waxwork exhibit. Yes! Iris told me all about his latest, unusual adventure. Alright, well, I am fine with no longer coming here. There we go. Now we can continue on. My apologies for doing things in a random order, but you can understand that it's only a result of me overlooking the one thing that absolutely mattered. Here we are again at the House of Horrors. I'm afraid I haven't got used to the place yet. I'd still like to turn on my heels and go straight home, by the confectionery, of course. Suzato-san really is after something sweet today, isn't she? Eek! What's the matter? Look! Mr. Nahudo! Look at that waxwork! I'm quite sure it wasn't there before. It looks exactly like Mr. Sholmes, down to the very last detail. Aha! What is it? Oh, sorry. I think you'll find that's the temporary waxwork himself. Ah, the friend of my dedicated employee. Oh, yes. Hello again. It's Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I must say, I'm quite spellbound by the great detective. He is a marvel. My precious waxwork is already back where it belongs. You don't mean... But yes, the mystery is solved already. Wow, Mr. Sholmes can really engage his brain when he's hungry enough. So as you can see, he has returned to his habitual duties. Yes. His habitual duties? Allures. Do not disturb, oh? Poor Susato-san, she looks very perplexed. Okay, if you don't mind, we really do need to speak with Mr. Sholmes, and I am longing to say hello again. But where is he? I think you might find that he's quite nearby, actually. Oh! What are you... Indeed, my dear fellows, it is I! The world-famous great detective in waxwork, Herlock Sholmes. Susato-san! Susato-san! She faint? Oh, she fainted. My most humble apologies. I thought I died and gone to eternal paradise for a moment, via London. My dear madam, allow me to make amends by offering you a tasty free deduction at some point. As long as it's not a questionable street food quality. I don't understand. Why are you working as a waxwork here, Mr. Sholmes? Merely a secret identity, you understand. Though the case is largely solved now. Largely solved? We're talking about the waxwork abduction, I presume. Indeed we are, my good fellow. As I predicted, it was as easy as proverbial pie. Though I confess I'm yet to partake of pie, a proverbial otherwise, or any food so far today for that matter. That stomach rumble echoed around the whole museum. So, how did you manage to solve it so quickly? Ah, well, do you remember I said it was largely solved? Anyway, I simply negotiated with the culprit. Are you familiar with the so-called telephone? Get destroyed again. Oh yes, it's a most modern invention, allowing you to hold a conversation with people far away. In Japan, only the imperial capital and a handful of other cities are connected as yet. This morning, a telephone call was received here from the perpetrator of the abduction. As such, I was able to negotiate terms, and in the end, the waxwork was returned. That's amazing! Just between you and I, it would appear the culprit had always intended to return the stolen waxwork in any event. Oh, but I thought whoever was responsible had demanded a ransom, no? Yes, I think perhaps the ransom demand was necessary to avoid unwanted suspicion regarding the true motive. But does that not mean your negotiating was entirely unnecessary? A fact that I must ask you to keep from Madame Tuspel's at all costs. A hungry young Iris awaits my return to Baker Street after all. Poor Iris. Now then, I do sense you have some business with this great waxwork. Oh boy, do we. Let's talk about Enoch Drebber. We'll get to our friend's death soon enough. We're in the process of trying to track somebody down. Oh? Yes, a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. He's a swindler who duped Professor Harebrayne and the engineer who built the kinesis machine. A swindler and an engineer? Quite the modern man. He also seems to be a conjurer of sorts too, with considerable knowledge of sage magic. We really need to locate him before the trial resumes tomorrow morning. But we have so few clues to go on. That's the trouble. Do you have any good ideas? I've no data yet. It's a capital mistake to have good ideas before one has data. If I knew something of the man's appearance at least, I may be in a better position to help. Yes, Drebber's appearance. Fortunately for you, however, presently I have little to occupy myself and little to fill my stomach. As soon as you find any clue, no matter how small, I should gladly give you my thoughts on it. Alright, well, since I'm trying to keep things on topic here, let's show him a picture of Drebber. Mr. Sholmes, would you cast your eyes over to this photographic print? It's of Mr. Enoch Drebber, the face of the engineer we seek. Well, all Englishmen look broadly the same, of course. So looking at the photograph won't be particularly instructive. Are you alright, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, yes, forgive me. Very interesting, this. Very interesting indeed. What's wrong, Mr. Sholmes? You've turned quite pale all of a sudden. Alright, well. Alright, fine, let's just get it out of the way. Cosmo's death, what do you know about it? Mr. Sholmes, did you lie to us? My dear Miss Nahodo, stay that piercing stare. What is this about? Last winter, when we were first on our way to Britain aboard the steamship, your words were very clear. So then, let us unravel this mystery and discover what events led to this curious murder. You told us that it was murder, and you examined Cosmos's body. Indeed. And wherein lies the problem? We met him earlier today, the victim, Kazuma Asogi. You're quite sure? He was wearing some sort of mask and was apparently suffering from amnesia. But yes, I'm quite sure. It was Kazuma-sama. You must have known at the time, Mr. Sholmes, that he wasn't actually dead. Well, I can only assume I was swept up in the murderous atmosphere of the moment. But the fellow wasn't dead at all? Priceless! You. I don't suppose that performance would pass muster, would it, Mr. Naruhodo? I can believe that the crewman present at the time made a mistake. But not you, Mr. Sholmes. I will now tell you something of the first importance, my dear fellow. Great detectives are wont to lie. It will serve you well to remember that. Please, Mr. Sholmes. Tomorrow in court, you will find yourself on the threshold of a very great mystery. For now, I'm afraid that is all I can say. I have a suggestion, Mr. Naruhodo. Will you indulge me? Oh, well, what is it? As I explained to you when you arrived, the missing waxwork has been returned. and I personally reinstalled it in the exhibit from which it was taken, behind those thick curtains. Oh, yes, the Professor exhibit, is it? Would you like to see it? For a mere 5 shillings? That's a special one-time-only price, you understand? Go to hell. What? The opportunity will come again, I might add. Would you like to see the fruits of my labor? Oh, well, we do have a rather pressing investigation to carry out. Perhaps we could postpone? The price is very reasonable, 5 shillings. I think you'll find it well worth it. Are you being quite serious, Mr. Sholmes? Surely you need not only look at my expression to ascertain if this is seriousness or silliness. I can never tell with you, that's the point. Very well, it couldn't hurt. Here's your 5 shillings. Gratefully received. So, the special exhibit awaits behind the curtain. I invite you to peruse it at your leisure. Well, the money's been spent, so let's go and see a special exhibit. Through those heavy curtains at last. Alright, well, nothing else to converse with him about, so 5 shillings we've had to pay. It doesn't seem right somehow that Mr. Sholmes slipped the money into his own pocket, does it? No. Ah, we could ask Gina to retrieve it for us. These are your special skills. Pickpocketing police officers and diddling detectives. Is this what makes Britain great? Not to mention, demigod prosecutors taking the law into their own hands, or chip-loving inspectors. Inspector Gregson comes off rather well in that list, I think. Yeah. Oh dear, I felt a shiver run down my spine as soon as we walked in here. Mr. Zato! I say we turn our heels and go straight home, via a really big confectionery. We certainly can't do that. We paid 5 shillings already. True. Actually, now I'm looking at it a little more closely. We've paid good money to see an exhibit that's clearly incomplete. The nerve of the great diddling detective is far more terrifying than anything else in this place. This must be what Mr. Schultz meant when he said the case was largely solved. Be that as it may, Mr. Sholmes heavily implied there'd be a clue about the engineer in here, didn't he? But where? Since we paid 5 shillings, let's do 5 shillings worth of investigation, shall we? Well, yes, we will get what we paid for. It is his fear or frustration that's making Susato-san's voice tremble. I have a sneaky suspicion. This part of the exhibit is just as disturbing as the rest. It looks so real. It seems to be a young man in a white overcoat. And he has a large shovel in his hand, too. Look. Perhaps we should investigate a little more detail. What's this here? Well, this would appear to be a lens in the middle, so I believe it's probably a camera? Ah, a camera, but it's so small. British technology is incredible, isn't it? I mean, what about Mr. Sholmes' skin prints? I think perhaps you should treat Mr. Sholmes' inventions as exceptions to the rule. But anyway, why would the man be in a graveyard at night with a camera? I wonder. Perhaps he was trying to capture the moment a dead body came back as a ghost on film. We'll just borrow this for a little while, I think. We just take that? The camera from around the neck of a waxwork and Manitospel special exhibit. Alright. By looking at the photographic plate inside the camera, we can see what picture was taken. What's a photographic plate? It's a piece of glass coated in a special emulsion that reacts to light coming in through the lens. If we open the cover at the back of the camera, we should find it. Let's have a look. You should see yourself, Suzato-san. Your eyes are shining. You really do like machinery, don't you? That's quite a large lamp the man's carrying. Or is it a lantern? It's not unlike a Japanese chochin paper lantern, actually, is it? Lamp, lantern, chochin. The point is, it casts very little light. To be walking alone at a graveyard at night with only this... Well, I certainly couldn't do it. I'm not sure I could visit a graveyard at all, even in broad daylight, to be honest. I can't see his face very well, can you? Perhaps if I just... Oh! Do you think you should be manhandling the exhibits, Mr. Naruto? I'll put it back exactly as it was, don't worry. Huh? What on earth? How can... I don't believe it. A black monocle! Mr. Naruto, is it possible that this man is... Yes. It's Enoch Drebber. The color of his hair is different, but... It's unmistakably him! Indeed it is. Mr. Sholmes! This man is the subject of your present hunt, I believe. Yes, that's right. Just who is this man? Why is he here in this exhibit? And why does the convict behind him have no head? The head was missing when the model was returned by the thief who stole it. What a surprise. So then the case isn't yet solved, is it? Did I not say so myself? Largely it's solved, were my words, I believe. But I must locate the missing head, tout de suite, as Madame would say, or I'll be in grave trouble. A very hungry Iris still awaits my return to Baker Street, preferably with rations. Ah! Do you know, though, something about this room is strange. Strange? What do you mean? Well, the displays in the House of Horrors are supposed to depict real events, are they not? Indeed they are, Mrs. Sato. Do go on. And, as terrifying as they are, the scenes in the other exhibits are believable. But this one... This surely couldn't ever really have happened, could it? I think it's time I educated you a little. About the nature of the incidents involving the professor 10 years ago. Oh, please do. I believe I told you a little about the professor yesterday, did I not? He took the lives of 5 victims, everyone being either a member of the aristocracy or royalty. All were attached by an enormous hunting hound and had their throats ripped from their bodies. Oh gosh, an enormous hound? How awful. After taking the life of his 5th victim, the killer was apprehended. It was a case of unprecedented magnitude in Britain, you understand. Accordingly, the professor was tried in a closed court. No members of the public were permitted. A closed court? So you mean the professor's identity... As you surmise, my dear fellow, his identity was never made public. Naturally, he was found guilty and was summarily sentenced to death by hanging. He was buried in a grave at Lowgate Cemetery, which adjoins the rear of the prison where he had been held. However, that was not the end of the affair. Whoa! The very night that he was buried, the convicted man came back to life. Came back to life? He clawed his way out of the ground and emerged into the moonlit graveyard. The exhibit here depicts the very scene as described by the sole witness to those chilling events. There was a witness? But of course, my dear fellow, it was none other than the young man in the white overcoat. Enoch Drebber. He saw it happen? Young witness. So this is a waxwork model of Enoch Drebber. 10 years ago, the convicted professor, having been gibbeted and buried, emerged from his grave in the dead of night. The sole witness to that unimaginable scene was this young man. From appearances, I would say he was about 20 years old. It's so horrifying. Scared out of his wits, the young Drebber ran to a nearby police station to report the incident. And the sheer terror of what he'd seen is said to have turned his hair white overnight. Yes, as shown in the photograph we have of him, his hair is completely white. For the following few days, the story of what he'd seen was on every front page in the capital. The public was frantic for every last detail about the killer who'd come back to life. As you've seen, an exhibit was even created here at Madame Tuspel's. I can quite understand why the man's hair turned white, certainly. But what I don't understand is what Mr. Drebber was doing in the first place. In a lonely graveyard in the middle of the night. Yes, what was he up to? The professor's acts of terror threw London's upper class into complete panic 10 years ago. It was a great scandal, one might say, at the very highest levels of society. And since the killer's identity was never made public, rumors abounded. After all, no killer had ever before systematically employed a dog as a weapon of murder. Yes, I can imagine the impact the case must have had. But in time, of course, the rumors abated. So too did talk of the shocking witness account of the convict who came back to life. It was forgotten, dismissed as a dubious ghost story, as a preposterous parlor tale. But why did people stop believing it? Why, simply because there was no resurrection to speak of, as was established in fact. What do you mean by no resurrection? The police investigated the grave in Lowgate Cemetery and published their findings. The convict's body was found to be buried exactly where it had been following the execution. No! But that would mean Mr. Drebber must have lied to the police and the newspapers. That would appear to be the only logical explanation, yes. The young man subsequently vanished from society, and nothing has been heard of him since. It's rather striking, then, that he should resurface now, don't you think? Of course, the convicted murderer couldn't really have come out to life. That's not possible. But Drebber's hair is unusually white, and if that really did happen overnight as a result of shock, it's hard to believe the incident was an out-and-out lie. Let's go ahead and examine the camera. What a wonderful machine! You really love contraptions like this, don't you? Oh yes, anything mechanical I find absolutely irresistible. Almost irresistible, surely. Well, whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't help myself. I simply have to take it apart. That's worrying. Oh yes, Father tells the time by the rumblings of his stomach now. He's given up on having a watch. Poor Professor Mikotoba. There's blood. There's blood in the thing. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. What is it? On the bellows, just here, there seem to be some very dark red stains. Yes, you're right. It looks like blood, actually. Oh my. I'm sure it's not what you're thinking. Okay, so there are dark stains there. There's also this that's a set I want to examine. Oh look, the cover came open. Yes, now, there should be a glass plate inside. You have to change the plate with each new photograph you want to take, you see. Is something wrong? There's no plate. It's been removed. Ah, what a pity. But I suppose if you think about it, this wouldn't be the actual camera that was used at the time, just like the waxwork isn't the actual person. So we'd never have found a photograph or print of the executed convict coming back to life anyway. Oh, yes, you're quite right, of course. Forces Oda-san, she looks devastated. This must be the killer. The fiend knows the professor. Yes, I think so, according to what Madame Tuspel said. He killed 5 victims, all of noble or royal blood. The waxwork is so lifelike, isn't it? Like all the models in this place. I know, it looks like it could start moving at any moment, doesn't it? If only it had a head, that is. Perhaps we should examine it in a little more detail. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, I can't really seem to move it, so... So this is the condemned man. Yes, the so-called professor. Then perhaps his head was chopped off by a guillotine. But unable to find peace, he emerged from his grave as a headless ghost. Do we have to entertain such terrifying ideas, Mrs. Sato? Anyway, I'm sure the model had a head once. There's a metal fitting for it, see? Then, perhaps Mr. Sholmes absentmindedly forgot to reattach it? That's an extremely absent-minded detective you're describing, isn't it? Or perhaps the thief absentmindedly forgot to include the head when he or she returned it to the museum? And that would be an extremely absent-minded thief. Could there have been some reason why only the head wasn't returned? Well, whatever the reason, it means we don't know what the face of the infamous professor looked like, do we? Oh. There's something caught just inside the convict's jacket here. It looks like a piece of broken glass, and quite a big piece, too. It's very thick, isn't it? About 5 times thicker than normal window glazing, I'd say. Where could such a thick piece of glass have come from, I wonder? I suppose it must have been made thick to increase its strength? But why? Well, perhaps because the glass had to span a particularly wide area, such as in a big building, for example. Ah, well, we've seen a large glass building recently, haven't we? Some of the glass is broken, too. You don't mean... Exactly. The Crystal Tower at the Great Exhibition. But why would glass from the Crystal Tower be lodged inside this waxwork's jacket? It makes you think, doesn't it? Alright, so we have a piece of broken glass, a small fragment of very unusual and thick glass that was found in the folds of the clothing of the Professor Waxwork. It could appear to be from the Crystal Tower. Earlier in the court, we established that the kinesis experiment was a trick. And now we discover this fragment of glass here in this waxwork. Is it just a coincidence? Ah! What the bleeding Noda-Odo? What have you gone and done? Gina, what are you doing here? I asked ours, and she said this is where you be, so... Gina, not so loud in the museum. Madame Tuspels will have you take a position as a waxwork if you're not careful. Alright, what did you do? I think there might be more pressing concern. I still had some flash powder left from 6 months ago, so... Alright, Gina, we understand, but please, put down the gun. What's the problem? Sorry, I got scared. You should try being the one on the other end of the barrel. So, what brings you here, Gina? What brings me here? What'd you think? We found it! We found it at Dodgy Cove's workshop! What? You found Drebber's workshop? Yep. Toby's nose took me straight there. The boss and the others are heading over there now in a drag, so come on! Here's the address. I got the boss to write it out. Oh, thank you, Gina. We'll make our way there at once. All right, then. See you there. All right, you know what? She's getting more points today, because very reliable. You go. Don't mind me. I'll just stay here, being still. What? I know my place. In the exhibit over there. With no eyes. Oh dear, someone is feeling sorry for himself. Let's go, Mr. Sholmes, you're coming! No words hearten me, I must say, but if I were to shirk my duties here, Madam would have me pay monetary recompense, and Iris's dinner plate would be empty once more. Forget that! I'll pay for everything! Then there's not a moment to lose, my dear fellow! I shall hurl a carrot at once! No offer to share the cost from Mr. Sholmes, then. I'll gladly pay half, Mr. Nahodo. Thank you, Mrs. Sato. Right, let's go.